Hey everybody, we're just setting up. We are going to go straight away at 1 o'clock. We have a couple of minutes. I'm going to be sharing a technique, upload-download, which is creating a highlight and a low light at the same time. So I just renamed it, rebranded it. So I'm just going to share with you this idea and this technique. I have formulation pages for you, and I have some head sheets that I'll be sharing the idea. So if you click on, you can just check everything out. Feel free to ask any questions that you might want to ask. And for those of you that are joining us that aren't using any Keune, please let me know so that I can then just answer any questions and let you know the example of what we're using. So I've already pre-done some of this so you can see the sectioning, and then I'm going to do the other side and then the top so that you can see exactly how I approach the color. I think it's something that we're going to be able to use in the salon on a normal basis, especially when clients come back. And I know that it's really important because some of them are going to have some mean regrowth when they come back in. So it's not really necessarily a shadow, but it's just putting color back in, maybe blending gray, or just creating some interest in the color. Also, we're seeing color shifting a little bit away from the traditional application of balayage and foil formulation, but we're seeing color actually go into the direction of maybe a little bit more dynamic or bold or stronger. Not necessarily stripier, it's still going to have a blend, but I think the interest is going to be created with creating a great contour of light and dark and how they play on one another. And that's something I really want to discuss today in today's presentation. So I am just sitting here waiting. It's now 1 o'clock. For those of you that are going to be joining us, I'm going to be sharing with you my download-upload application, meaning I'm going to be lifting color and dropping in color at the same time. For those of you that know me and have been around with me for a while and attended some of my courses here at the Keune Academy, it's something that I used to call push and pull, but I just changed the name. And I think that's something that we need to do now is really be innovative and reinvent some of the ideas and some of the things that we do in our salon. The model's going to totally change. If you're interested in where I'm at, I'm right here at the Keune Academy. Nobody's been here for a couple of months. I think Garrett Palmer and myself taught for the last time in March, and so it's all empty and disinfected. So I took a little trip from home and came on in. So let me share with you the idea of what I was doing. So in through the back, what I've done is I created some really nice, beautiful W sections. And you're always going to have that section. The reason why I did a W section is because the point at any W right here or on the top or in the middle or on the corners, you're always going to have this beautiful point. And that point is going to be left out so that you can leave a darker piece of color. And that contour is what's going to make that highlight pop out along with an intermediate color. So what do I mean by intermediate? To me, an intermediate color is a blending tone, a color that gives you a hue from a gradient from dark, medium to light. So what that does is gives you really nice rhythm, but it also balances out the color. So as you can see over here, what we've done is we did 3 different variations. Believe it or not, she is a natural level 3. So she was really dark. I wanted to brighten her up and keep her on the warm side, so I call it bronze. And what we did was everything in here was a big W section into the back, on the top, and then underneath, just to create a little bit of interest that comes through on the focal points. When they look inside the mirror, they can see themselves and they see that little bit of a highlight. So then as we work towards the top, always, what is it that they want to see is they want to see a little bit more light. So I'll show you when I get up to the top and I'm starting my application where you can see how I did my back-to-back open face, and so that I could get more interest in highlighting into the front pieces. So Jessica Mills, our VP of Education, is going to be working with me, and she's going to be on the speakerphone telling me and fielding any questions that you might have. So if you hear a little voice, it's not mine, it's Jessica's. So let's get started. So the 3 color variations that I'm going to begin with today. The first formula is going to be my download, and that's going to be my 638 in semi. Semi color is a demi-permanent color. It's beautiful to create low lights. It's beautiful to do any color correction that you might need. The color choice that I love to use sometimes, especially in this type of work, is 638. It's a perfect balance of a gold brown. It's a level 6. It's gorgeous. It just brings that color back down and it has a little bit more balance to it. So if you're ever concerned about porosity towards the ends, this would be a perfect choice to use because what it's going to do, it's going to balance it out. You know, sometimes when we use a color, maybe a cooler tone and she's really blonde, and we pull it all the way through, say in a foil packet. Sometimes it'll grab the base because of the porosity, so it's really important to pre-treat as well. So you want to do that before you have anything that you begin with. Sometimes it's good to do a mask or a miracle elixir, which is something that we use here at Keune, something that's going to even out the porosity. Sometimes people, we have a protein spray, like to spray that on and equal that out just a little bit and then do their application of their low light onto that. But the reason why I'm using 638 is because it gives you a beautiful distribution of even color and tone all the way through. So that's why I'm using 638. Now remember earlier I mentioned an intermediate color, or a color that's going to give you in between the low light and the highlight, something to give you a blending point. So in that blending point, I'm going to use the High Lift series. It's our Ultimate Blonde series, and it's going to be 1517. The reason why I choose 1517 is because the 1 is a blue base and the 7 is a violet. So it's a high lift, but it's also a blue violet at that level. So when you look at all of our high lifts, they're all built for specific needs for your client, for the hair. So if you have a 1511, that would be an ash. So that would really be good for levels 5, 6, or levels 4, 5, and 6, so that you want to do a highlight, say they want caramel, and then that'll help to control the undertone of that warmth and kind of neutralize it as you're lifting. So it's a beautiful high lift to mix with. Also, the high lifts are used in mixing ratios, 1 part of color to 2 parts of your developer, 20, 30, or 40 volume. I am using right here 30 volume, and my mixing ratio again is 1 to 2. Then my third color choice, which is going to be the lightest of all 3, that's going to be my Ultimate Blonde Power Lift. I love this lightener. I love it for foiling. I like the way it gives me that levels of lift that I want, up to 7 levels, and it creates a beautiful, beautiful control of lift, and also allows me to do anything that I want to with either foils or hand painting. So we do have another hand painting lightener that we have in our arsenal of color, and that's going to be the Freedom Blonde, which is our clay-based lightener, which is beautiful to work with. And you can see some of those pieces I wanted to bring up just a little bit lighter. I hand painted at the very end. Sometimes we have to go back and really tweak the color just a little bit. So I want to let you know that's what I've done through the front. At first we did everything that we did here, and then I felt like I needed just a little bit more push in those colors around the face. That's where they want to see it. So I just hand painted a few of those pieces just to give me a little bit of interest in the color application.
Hey George, I have a question for you.
Sure, go right ahead, Jess.
When would you use Miracle Elixir, and when would you use Bond Fusion?
Okay, Bond Fusion you can use in different ways. You can use it as a standalone, which is a great treatment to use. You can also use Bond Fusion in your color, just like any bond builder that you want to use in, and we have it all broken down on the instruction packet so you can see exactly where you can use it in different variations. So you can use it with color, and you can use it with your lightener. Now Miracle Elixir for me is more of a luxurious treatment, but it also reestablishes the hair. Depending on what you need, you can mix it with your mask. So if you have, let's just say, Vita Nutrition, and you really need to really create a little bit more strength in the hair, Vita Nutrition is my go-to, and I would mix the Miracle Elixir in that. And that's where I would use it. Put on the mask, let it set, wrap a warm towel around her, let it set for about 5 to 10 minutes, take it down, rinse, and then you're good to go. So those are great treatments to use. We have a whole system in that particular system that is also great for you to use in this line. So back to the color. I hope that answered your question. It was a great question, thank you. So back to the color. I'm going to start in the back. What you see that I've done, and I'll show you the head sheets really quick. You can see them. And if you need me to move this model over, I can do that if you can see. So I gave you 3 stages of how I'm going to be working. So what we do in the back, this is going to be your back section here. This is going to be your side. And this is going to be the top. So these are the 3 sections of concentration that we're going to be working on. So in these types of sections, you're going to create a lot of movement and momentum in the color. So I'm going to take this back section, I'm going to split it into two. I've already done the underneath section that's going to fall within the back of the ear throughout the top and or throughout the back to the front. So I'm going to split this section into two sections. I'm going to put that one away. This is the section that I'm going to be working with. Let me just turn it so you can see it. I'm going to tilt it down just a little bit so I have a really good working plane. Now I'm going to drop out, because if you want to paint that later, I'm going to drop out that section, and I'm taking very huge sections, and then I'm going to take the next section right next to that, on top of that, and you want to see these colors blend into each other. This is going to be my first color choice. I'm going to use, because I want to marry my download color, so I'm going to just work that into the base. I'm going to use my 1517, work that through, and all the way to the ends. Now some of you might be concerned about the blending point here. What's going to happen is by running some of that semi through and the high lift underneath, it's going to give you a softer and even a darker version of what's going to be on the ends. So you're going to have a really soft blend. Now some of us in the salons have been doing a lot of open face foil, but what I'm noticing is that I'm closing my foils up again and walking away from a little more freehand and working with a little bit more control in the foil. Now this one is going to be a combination of the two. They are back to back. So you have this first one, which is my high lift, 1517. This one is going to be a combination of my downward color, 638 in semi, my 1500, and I'm just going to smudge it in, work it through, and I want to work some of that color from the base through. Now I'm going to take my lightest of all three, and I hope you can see that really well, and I'm just going to get that blend in there so I get a really good saturation. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take another foil, and if I fold it up on itself, this piece down here is going to sit on top of that, and I don't want to disrupt that, so I'm just going to use two foils so that I can lock it in, and I'm going to fold it over like that, because now that fold that's different is going to show me exactly where the color is in that particular foil. Now some of you know me, sometimes I use transparencies, and sometimes the transparencies are good when you're using open face foil, so you can see exactly where your color is. For me, I like to talk a lot sometimes, and I would get disrupted in the salon and I wouldn't know where I would be, so sometimes I would have to play the peekaboo game, go back through and take a look. So now what I can do is with the transparency, you can see exactly where you're working, what you placed last, and then you can move forward in a great timely manner. So that's important. Now that I've just done that, now I'm going to leave out a big chunk of section. Big, to me, that's big. I'm going to leave that out. And this you can paint later on. You can paint later on, and that'll give you a beautiful color. I remember that sometimes through the foils, when we get a new client, sometimes you have to paint through the new color in between your foil packets. And if you did a heavy duty foil from like the nape all the way through to this entire global application, you would sometimes have to paint that new color all the way through. So just consider this. This is going to be your download color along with what you're putting into that foil at the base. So now I'm going to move to my next section. And you're going to see, here's why it's going to work for you. The reason why there's small sections that are triangular, they allow you to use less foil but get more impact in your color. So sectioning is important. Sometimes you use different shapes. These particular shapes create a diagonal back. So what do I mean by diagonal back? When you're styling the hair, take a look at our girl here. When you're styling, because it's all diagonal back into the back, you get a little bit more movement in that color application and it softens out your lines. So it's really important that you can see that. So I'm just going to turn her just a little bit. So you can see, now this is a lot darker than the front. So this is a diagonal back, diagonal back. So that's going to give you that momentum of color going through the curl and the wave. Now, my next section I'm going to use is just my 1500 series. I'm gonna work through on my base. And then my 1500. And we're gonna work all of this color all the way through. Really good saturation and good blending. Now, there's some tools that you might use for blending that you like to use. So, for instance, I like to use the Primar brush, this large paint brush, for hand painting and dry brushing. And that really helps to give me that vertical placement. It brings and blends that color down into that placement. So that's a really great tool to use. They're one of my favorite tools. I also have them in black and then in pink. So now this one I'm going to fold over just to about the line of demarcation, just right there where we created that smudge. It's a different foiling idea, but it works really well so you don't prop that color right on top of the next section. Now, as I'm moving into this diagonal section, it is going to be currently moving diagonal strong, diagonal mid, and then up into a diagonal vertical kind of looking section. And that's important because underneath is going to be your download, and on top your color is then going to spill through that. And when you break it up, what you're going to do is you're going to get a variation of colors and tones. So that's really key.
Hey,
So right
George?
into here, yes.
Did you say you were slightly overlapping the 1500 over the semi, or just smudging it?
I'm smudging it. Let me show you, because that's a great question that I'm going to touch on right now. So here's what we just did. Here's to the question that I said. Who asked that question, please? Jessica? Okay.
Gina?
Okay, cool. So we're going to work that through. Then I'm going to take my 1500. I'm going to slightly go below it. And then what you can do is you could just brush that over into that area, and that'll help smudge those colors together, and they'll give you a soft variation. I think sometimes what happens is that when we're doing this type of color variation in your blending, you can tend to get a hard line of demarcation or a little bit of a brassier tone. You get a little band. So this will help to eliminate it. I'm dragging some down of that color that's at the base, and then with the upload color lifting up, we're going to just blend that in, and that'll give you a nice variation of tone. Now this one is going to have all three colors, so I'm going to work in. And again, I'm doing the same idea that you have up here. We're going to be working with the lightener and doing that blend as well. So again, you get a really soft variation of those colors. Now this is what I did that was different about this section. I added another foil. And what that foil is going to do is just going to help to protect it so it doesn't lap over onto itself. This is the section that I'm going to complete. And also I'm going to change the way that I fold it over, so now I know when I'm rinsing that the ones that are folded over like a butterfly are going to be the ones that I'm going to work with. So you can see right here that we've got diagonal, diagonal medium, diagonal slight vertical, and almost vertical but not quite because of the round of the head. What you're going to notice when you're doing the technique, you can see how it hugs the head shape. And that's really important because one of the number one questions that clients have is, have you gotten it close enough? But now we're shadow rooting and creating that base color in there and dragging it through. You really want to get a really good application of blend. So this will help you to lock that in. And you want to see it follow the shape of the head. So there are things that I'm talking about, and following the shape of the head are really important. Because your diagonal placement, you're going to also follow the form of the head shape and the fall of the hair style or hair cut. So now I'm working to the other side. When you look at this section, it is a strong W. Let me just show you.
Oh, God.
So you can see it there. And then I'm just going to work over. And I'm going to be parallel to the foil below me. I'm going to drop out this section. Drop that out. And I'll just show you right here. And this is going to be my foil. We're going to work in the base color. Now, this will work for you really well if you're doing a base that's offering great coverage. So you can do that. There's two ways that I like to approach it. Sometimes I can approach it by doing the base first and then letting that time out so you get better break coverage. I think that's an issue with break coverage, is that sometimes we think that it's not covering enough and maybe we just didn't time it enough. For me, with really resistant, can I get my my Starbucks, please? For me, really resistant hair, I tend to leave it on 45 minutes at a max. Also, we do not use any heat with our color. So what we do is we would recommend at room temperature 45 minutes for really resistant stubborn hair. So let me just get my refresher. So
George, would your amount of hair you're taking in the sections, would that vary if you had somebody with skinnier hair?
You know what? It could vary. Depending on the amount or the density of the hair, your application is going to vary. But here's the important key about that. The important part is the sectioning. So if you're doing diagonal sectioning, that's really going to be very forgiving in your application. So that's another reason why I like to use it. It gives me more movement and momentum in the color, but more importantly, it's very forgiving in the lines of color. For instance, sometimes we would do faux hawks of color on the very top of the head, thinking, okay, that's going to spill over. Yes, it's going to spill over into a vertical placement, but what's also going to happen, that when you look at a bird's eye view of it, it's going to look like horizontal placement and stripiness. So by using a diagonal section, you're going to be a lot more forgiving on your application, and the end result is going to be a lot softer. Great question, thank you. So now that I'm working through here, I'm going to work in with my high lift only. Blend that through. And then again, just work to that line of demarcation on your fold. Bring it over. Now my next one directly on top of that is going to be a slice as well. And then this is also going to be my base color. And then I'm going to leave hair out. Now I'm going to work in my high lift just a little bit. That's your mid color. So you're actually creating a blend, but you're also creating a little bit more definition in your color application by what you leave in between your foils. So just always recall that what you leave in between your foils is just as important as what you put back into the foil. So if my sections are a little bit broader here in between foil to foil, then you're going to have more definition of the dark. If it's tighter and closer, you're going to have more definition of the highlight and the low light that you're placing in your color application. So now
question for you.
Sure.
How about using the herringbone technique in the mohawk section on top?
That's a great way of doing it. I have a dear friend that used to do a lot of herringbones, and what that does is it's going to create an inner stitch of the color, and that's going to create more movement. So let's just say you're working on the top. So very similar to a herringbone, the reason why you get more variation of colors into here instead of stripes is because they're diagonal forward, and they're all over directed towards the back. I want you to think of a few things when you're doing color application. Some of us in the salon do a variation of both. We do hair cutting and hair coloring. If you're not departmentalized, you do color and cutting, so that can also change. So, by using that type of sectioning and over-directing, you're also doing it like you would a haircut. So if you think of doing a haircut with a diagonal placement and over-directing it away from where it lives, what's going to happen is you're going to create more push towards the front that's a lot softer. And that'll also help you with that herringbone placement or diagonal placement with one in the center to protect it. And I'm going to get to that in the middle and on the very top so you can see some of that. I'll give you a little example. Now this next section is going to be the dark. So I've done 2 back-to-backs. Leave that out. And you can see the next section above that. Now here's what I love about the idea of this technique is that this could also, if you wanted to, paint another color in between the hair that I left out. You can take your base color, dilute it with clear, so take 638 equal parts clear, and pull that through all of the hair that's exposed in between your foils, And that'll give you a fourth variation of tone in your color, which is really nice too. So it'll look really pretty and natural. So now here's my base color again. Here's my highlight. Working to that line.
George, will you be posting all of your formulas and head sheets?
Yes. So if you go to my IG under Colorboy Geo, George Colorboy Geo, because there's 2 accounts, that'll definitely, we'll put it into our stories. We'll put it on stories, and then we'll carry it down into one of the buttons that you'll see above, and you'll see like techniques and ideas. So yes, you will be able to see those.
Great.
And I'll also post them on Facebook. So now this is my next section. So we're doing 2 back-to-backs. You can see how broad it is, and you can see the point of that triangle. That's perfectly okay. If for those of you that are blenders out there and you want that perfect blend, this is not the perfect blend. You want that variation of color so that it pops out at you like you see here. So now we're going to work in the face. Work that through. Work a little bit of my high lift. Hope you guys can see that. And now we're going to create the light on the ends. Now I'm going to take open face foil, isolate it to protect it. And that's going to be the last one that I'm doing to the top. So if you look at it, in the back we have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 foils. Pretty simple. So when you're looking at the back of this, you see that area that I just completed is this area right here, from the high point of the head to about the top of the occipital. So when you're looking at that section, that's about where it's going to sit. And then everything underneath that we did just highlights of the 2 color variations so that you can get a light to dark underneath. So you have a nice gradient of color. And then as I went to the top, I'm going to show you exactly what we're going to do there in just a minute. And then I'm going to tell you exactly how I styled and prepped it today. So for those of you that know me, you know very well that I'm not usually the one styling or cutting my hair. I'm usually the one coloring it. So now that I've completed the back, you can see that, okay? And if you lift it, they're going to be kind of like a butterfly. You're going to see that section. They're going to have movement that way. So all that color is going to spill through. Now we're going to just work on the very top. And I'm going to share with you how that works. So in the top, in the sectioning, what you're going to notice, let me just pull this up for you. There's 4 sections. Now I've taken the section from the hairline down, and then worked it back up, back down. So it's like a W. What you're going to see is 1, 2, 3, 4 sections that you're going to be working with. So 2 front and 2 in the very back top. So that's going to be your sectioning that you're going to work with. So when you look, we've completed this area. Now we're going to work over to the top area. Right to here. So, taking that section, letting that color spill, it's going to be diagonal. Now my diagonal placement is going to change. You're going to see it overlap on the foil below. What that means is that section is now, because it's a diagonal forward, is going to push towards the front of the face, and that's really, really going to create a lot of movement. So now we're going to drop that section out. We're going to leave that in between. My next section is just going to be a nice white stitch there. Now, as I'm working towards the top, I'm going to change the application a little bit. So I'm going to work a little bit lighter. So what you can see on the mannequin over here, see the spill of color? This is because of the over direction that I had in that angle here. Now it's going to spill because of the form of the head shape, so that you can see it. And that's a section that I'm working on right now. So you can see how it spills over and it spills back. It's really important when you're doing diagonal sectioning. This one's going to be just my highlight completely all the way through. And for those of you that just joined us, if you can see what we're doing, I'm doing 2 back to back and then 1 in between as a subsection. Now in order not to overlap that into the base color, I'm just folding it to that line that I smudged the color through. And that's going to be my section right there. Then my next section right directly on top of that, and again over directing. This is going to be a combination of all 3 of those color formulas. So now here's my download, here's my mid, and here's the upload or the lightning of the 3.
Love it. Debbie says that she thinks that your mannequin is haunted because she keeps moving by herself.
Which one? This one?
The wig.
The wig. Yeah, she's kind of she's a trippy little girl. Sometimes, you know, I left her downstairs, and then the next morning I woke up and she was upstairs. So I think she is haunted, Jenny. So now we're just gonna fold. Oh, sorry. This is the 3 colors, so I'm going to put another isolation over that. Let me just blend that. Turn it this way so you can see it. So you can see that diagonal placement going forward. Here's what's really interesting about it that I discovered in doing this. What I love about it is, you remember that really deep section that you had into the sides right through here in the V? This color is going to then blend to that and spill right into it. So if this were even thicker, it really wouldn't hurt, you wouldn't see it, because everything on top is going to spill over that area. So that's really key. So this section right here is going to go over there. As I'm moving into this section to the very front, the more I move to the front, and I'll show you, the more spill of color that I have over these 2 sections on the side. So now we're going to just leave that hair out. Now look at this. This section that I'm leaving out, that's going to be dark, is also for free hair. It's going to blend into that. And that's the illusion of the color that you create with doing that type of sectioning. So now my next section is just going to be the base. So we have this crazy rainy weather right here in Atlanta right now. And then it stops, and then it just pours like crazy. So wherever you're at, I hope you're having great weather. And work that through. Work that color in, smudge it through. Fold that over to that line of demarcation. So in this vicinity, what you're going to see, let me show you the benchmark again. This is the area that you're going to start to see this color travel to. The variation of colors working all the way through on the very top. Now by over directing all of that hair towards the back, what you're going to do is you're going to get a softer blend from underneath. I think that's important. And why that's so important is because when we're styling, either doing a flat iron wave or a curling barrel curl, or even like I did a waving iron today, you can get that variation stronger and from underneath. So when you open it up, you have that color and you don't have that hard line of demarcation working from within. Instead of placing the color on the very top, you're placing it from underneath the hair instead of on top of the hair. So you can see all of the movement throughout the color. So what I love about using wigs, and I'll talk about coloring wigs because that's a whole other animal. It's really fun because I'll be able to take this and work on it with a photo shoot if I want to do more of a blonding or that type of a shoot. So it's really great to work with those types of wigs. Now, we're going to leave the next section. Let's do my two back to back. Here's my section out. Now on the very top high point of the head, I'd like to use a little bit more sectioning in my stitches because I want, that's really a strong focal point for everybody. So I'm just gonna work, you're gonna see that I'm gonna just take my base and I'm just gonna press it in. I'm not gonna really drag it through. And then I'm gonna work my color all the way in, just like that. This is 15-17 with 30 volume. The mixing ratio on that again is 1:2, so 1 part of color to 2 parts of its developer. The fold is really important, so you want to fold it over to that line. Drop out, and then we're just going to start over. Now, as I'm moving towards the center portion of the head, my diagonal is going to slightly change. I'm going to work that through so you can see how it's slightly moving. And the reason why I'm doing that is into that section, you have to really think about the part and where they're going to part it. So for me, if she has a center part, that line might be too strong. And if it's the center part, I want to be a little more diagonal, working up into that area so that I can get more variation of color. If she wears a side part, that's also another good reason that you might want to switch this over just a little bit and taking that side part and working off of that area in the diagonal placement. So that's key. Her parting is definite, the way she likes to wear it. So I'm just going to work that through. Drop out that section. And now I'm working very, very close to the last section. This is going to be my last one. And again, I'm just going to take a little bit more of a stitch. Leave that hair in there. And this one is going to be a little bit smudged. A little bit of my highlight, not too much, because remember this section is way up here, so it's going to have a lot more place to travel, so you want that highlight to be higher in this section as I'm moving towards the front of the face. Working that through. Now I was talking earlier about using transparencies. So in the very front, I'm going to use them, but I'm going to show you exactly how you can use them if you like. By placing that transparency foil right on top, now I have an idea of where my section and what color I'm using so that I don't get lost in my section. This is my last section. I'm going to leave that section out, and that separates the back and the front section. Now I'm working on the very top front. Now this is where they always ask you to do what? Do a little more light, right? So now my sections are going to switch. Remember, this is the dark right behind it. So I'm going to do a little bit of a transitional stitch, if you will. So I have a little bit more softness between the dark and that light. This is going to be my first section. On the front section, I'm just going to smudge in my base, working just a little bit. And now remember, in the very first beginning of the section, on the last section behind us, I used my 1500 all the way through as a blended color. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use all three, and I'm going to start working in the very front so that we get more highlight, like you see on the benchmark, into the front, because that's the area but they always want to see a little bit more brightness, which is around the face. Also, it's the area that I also look at and think of, that's going to have the line of demarcation. So the lighter it is in the front, the stronger the line of demarcation is going to come in as it grows back in. And now we're working through that area. I'm going to take another section. And now my sections are just going to be a little bit smaller in between in my stitch. There we go. Now I'm going to take my diagonal section towards the front and over direct it. This is my next section here. A little bit of my shadow. Now if you want more definition in your sectioning, you can opt into doing a little bit of the download color in between, and that'll give you more definition of your variation of colors. So you see on the one, I know benchmark that I'm working with over here. So I'm going to show you his signal that you want to see this benchmark. So you can see the variation of colors. You can see the variation of all the colors that I want to link it all on. But you can see that that's what's creating that movement in the color. So the more that I work in through this little pie section, if you will, which is an upside down triangle, I'm working towards the front, over directing, over directing, over directing. I'm using more back-to-back light. Instead of a dark medium and light, I'm using more of the light in between. So you can see that as I'm going towards the front, you get more variation of that light coming through. And that's the places that I use on the wig that you can see in the places that they have on the head sheet. All right, so this is how you're going to get those sections. And because you're pulling it away from yourself, you get a softer shadow and a softer blend. That's really important to get that variation of color that you want to see. Now we did separate this with spray wax in our style line so you get the variation of colors. And what I did was I just sprayed in. I called on a friend, Jessica Bartolucci, to ask her what she would finish this with. And you can see that it just gives you a really nice hold. It gives you separation, but it doesn't take it away. Sometimes when you have these styling products, sometimes they'll weigh that wave down. So this will actually give me a little bit more push in the color and in style. And you notice that I'm really being very gently with my hands so that I can push up the wave. Now the iron that I used to set this today in all diagonals was the waving iron that I have right here. So this is what I used. So we sprayed it and we prepped it first. The first thing that I used was my Absolute Volume mousse. I know mousses have been a go and come back, and they go away and they come back, but for me, it's a really good standard to set and prep the hair with. So we used that. And then what I did was I set it with soft set, a really nice mist, and then I set it with the iron. And then I finish it off with my wax. Get your hands out of there, mister. He's always trying to push the hair around. If he's a hairdresser or something. Well, he is, but back in the day. So I have tons of stories on that one. So now just getting back to my application so that you can see this. I'll move this back so you guys can take a look at it. How's that? Is it in frame? Okay, cool. Now, that's the section that I was talking about right here. This is this area that I'm talking about going towards the hairline. In order to create a little bit of definition, you sometimes have to put that dark in there in order for it to punch out, but it's very slight. It's not a lot. So I'm going to work that base, and now I'm going to work my high lift all the way through. It's still lighter, but it's not as light as the light note. So it still gives me a variation of the colors and tones that you can see in those ribbons of color. So you see more of a golden amber tone, and then you see a really light tone of the blonde, so that you can see that variation. But very little of the dark color that we have in through here, which is 638.
George, what is the name of the waving iron that you were using?
It is by Hot Tools. Let me show you. I like it because it has a lock and an unlock on it, so you can lock it when you store it. but it's one of my favorite tools to use for waving. I use this on a couple of photo shoots, fell in love with it. It's a simpler way of using, instead of setting, you can just use your iron, and it's really great. It has a really nice temperature too on it, so I can go to, I think, 460. So, yeah, definitely one of the best little iron tools that I have to use with. So, here's my open base. We're going to take this next section. How are we doing on time, Jessica?
You have 15.
Ooh, this day's gone by fast.
I know, but everyone's loving the technique.
Oh, I'm glad you're liking that. I really want you guys to use it. You know, I try to share with you something that you can take back to your salon and it's realistic. And for me, I've been very fortunate to work with a lot of amazing hair cutters. So for me, I'm always coloring the cut. And that's really key. And I know that when you go back home, you're going to be doing both. So I want you to take back tools that you can really utilize and work with on your daily clientele, and that's important. You know, sometimes trends or fads are really fun and they're really great for shows. But when you get down to it and making money and being more profitable in your salon, these are I think techniques that you can really use. And that's really important to for me to understand that you guys have something in your back pocket that you can always rely on. Now, this isn't going to be the only way to do it, I know that, but it's just an idea or an impression for you that you can maybe think, oh, I remember when George did these kind of, you know, pie sections or W sections or whatever you want to call them, that will give you that momentum and push. But more importantly, I want you to work a lot less and not work so hard. And I think with today's bookings that we're going to have to innovate. You're going to have to come up with different methods that are shorter in time, but give you that full impact and give you that experience, that the client experience. They want that luxury experience in a shorter amount of time. And I think with everything going back to the way it is with masks and, you know, with the plastic screens and gloves and all of that, it's going to take a lot. So I hope that you can really use it. Thank you for saying that. Okay, so now back to the very front. I'm just smudging in that. And I'm going to work with a little bit, just to give me a blend. And I'm going to work that through. And then I'm going to use the transparency directly on top of that. Now you're going to see the shift in this section is more of a diagonal back. So now you're going to see this come over to the opposite side. Now this one right here, I'm just going to use the 1517 and we're going to work that through. Section. We're going to leave out what you showing me? Bill's over here directing me and showing me stuff.
I think everybody's jamming out to the music too. But
what's that?
Turn off. The music that I forgot to tell you to turn off.
I just noticed it.
Oh, it's been playing the whole time. I didn't even notice. So sorry. So that thumping noise was in my head. It was really true.
Yeah, it was really there.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Could you hear me though?
I could hear. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Well, this is a whole new ballgame now doing online education. And it gets a little getting used to with all the technology behind it. And it is super easy once you learn, but it is a whole different way of engagement and enrollment. So if you want to go to my page on Instagram, it's George Colorboy Geo. You can see a whole library. I'll show you really quick on the iPad. There's a whole library of the latest collections, Collection Electro, my other collection that was an editorial collection. And you can see all of that. So let me get closer to you so you can see it. Let me just push this down. left. But anyway, if you go to George Alderete, you can see all of the variations of collections that I've done over the past and last year. So we're gonna go here. I'm almost finished. We're at the finish line right now. Now towards the front, like I always say, they always want more bright. So we're gonna leave that section out. We're just gonna smudge that through. I'm gonna take this section. By over directing it, you're gonna get a really soft blend. Now, as I'm working in the very front, this is really key. You notice I was taking slices. Now I'm gonna start taking small baby lights or stitches. And the reason why is because if they pull that hair up and away and wear it up in a high pony or back pony, what's gonna happen is it's gonna have a hard line of demarcation, and you don't wanna see that, you wanna see a blend. So how do you create a blend in the foil? It's very simple, it's the stitch. So by taking that baby light, just taking that stitch, just like that, what we're gonna do is now I'm gonna put my foil, you can see how soft that is. I'm just gonna do more of them. You got the page?
No, it says smooth.
Oh yeah,
for the
so this is very similar. And you're gonna see all the hair color formulas that you, in all the stories right here. This is my Facebook. And then I have them on Instagram, so you can always swipe through them and see all the different collections. Head sheets, formulations, tips, tricks, anything that you can think of, we've put in that library. And now I'm going to work through, I'm always gonna work through the lighter blonde in this front section, just because that's where they wanna see those pieces that make you a lot of money. So now we're gonna take that small section again. This time, we're going to do a high lift only, working through that download color, smudging that in, and then working that high lift color all the way through. So even though it's a lighter color and they're back to back, just because this is a few shades darker, it still gives you brightness in the front. So now this is my last section I'm going to be working with. I want to break that up just a little bit. I think that's too thick. Drop that out. Now this section right here is good. And there's sometimes I'll look at this section and I'll read it, and if it doesn't read really well, I'm really careful about it. I'm okay with redoing it, so I'm just going to take that section in there. We're going to paint some of my high lift, really work that through, soften that out, and now we're going to blend in my lightest color. You can see how the application follows the round of the head shape by over directing it. So here's some important key factors that you want to remember. You always want to remember when you're doing over direction in your application, you're going to get a better drag of color because it's living away from where the hair wants to be. So now when this hair falls forward, you're going to get the strong placement. It just depends on how much placement you're going to put into the front, back to back, slice and skip. What are you going to do? So you want to really consider that, think about that when you're doing that kind of application by following the round of the head. Using a transparent or a cellophane wrap, what you're going to do is you'll be able to see exactly what you're using. Just to recap on the formulation though, on what we used, are the three colors that we have, just so that I can show you what they are.
And can you share process time?
Process time for me, that's a great question too. Let me get back to that. So the formula is here. First color is 638 in semi, and that's going to be 1 part of color to 2 parts of activator. That's the darkest color of all 3 that you see throughout here in the mannequin. The second one is going to be 1517, which is a high lift, 1 part of color to 2 parts of 30 volume. And then the ultimate blonde, right here is the lightest of them, and that's going to be with 30 volume as well. And then what I did to set her, just so that you can see, I'm using a little bit of the spray wax, and just to rake it in and through that section so you can see that movement of the hair color and get that really beautiful bronze kind of color. It's something that I think we've been playing with, and this technique works really well if you have a client that doesn't mind warmer tones. So it's really good for like the darker levels, level 3, level 4, even a level 2. So you can work with it and just break it in and break it up so you can see how the variations of colors work. It's kind of hard to play with though, it's a wig. So, how's that? Good? You like that, Jess?
Oh, it's beautiful. What about your process time? I'm sorry, did I miss that?
Okay, so back to the process time. That's a great question. You know, there's a lot of things that happen with processing time. Here's what I worked into my processing. In Color Faster, Leah, Vincent, and I have that class that we teach here at the Academy. And what we talk about is timing, and timing is key. So for me, by using a high lift that's got to sit on there for a while, using a deposit only color or demi-permanent color, that's going to sit for a little bit. So it's usually about 30 minutes after my last foil application, that's when I begin my timing. Because I have to consider that I need at least a 50-minute timing frame from my high lift to the lift. That also gives me a little forgiveness on my lightener. So my lightener, if I'm afraid that it's going to be on there too long, I might drop the level of my developer, and as I'm working towards the front, I would increase my developer in the new batch as I work, so that it blends into my timing. So then I can time it 30 minutes after my last foil application or hand painting application. I let it sit room temperature only, let it process, then I check it and I look at it, see where it needs to be, and then I can decide that undertone whether I want to tone it or whether I want to leave it raw. But I'm a firm believer in always adding on that service by using semi-color or a demi-permanent color in order to create the glaze and to lock in the tone just a little bit better. And right now we know that we're seeing a lot of cooler or ice cold tones. That's great, but I think that when you have a variation of warm tones, it's really important that you clean it up. So let me give you, for instance, of how we clean this up. So let's just say that this was just a little bit too warm. And I did think that. So here's what I did. You ready for this formula? So on this level, I took 10.7 in semi, which is a level 10 violet, and 10.2, 5 grams of each, okay? So what you can see is you can see that variation of color. Now, I thought it's warm, but I need to clean it up, right? So what I wanted to do, and then what I did was 20 grams of clear. So 20 grams of clear, 5 grams of 10.7, and 5 grams of 10.2. So that gave me a combination, and then 2 parts of red activator. I put that onto that warm, let it sit for 20 minutes, and this was the end result. It's still warm, but it would have looked a lot rawer and a lot warmer than if I wouldn't have put that on there just to give it a little bit of tone. My other option would have taken neutralizing sprays, blue violet. Spray that on there, leave it for 5 minutes. But I wanted to glaze it so that it gives it more shine, more durability in your color, and it always makes that color look really pretty and soft. So it's always good to, and it's great add-on. So that's something that I like to do in toning. Leave it on 20 minutes. Do not do a flash tone, please. If you do a flash tone, I always teach this, you're doing yourself a disservice in that color variation. So if you leave it on 20 minutes, it's going to oxidize to its fullest potential, and it's going to give you the most durable and have you more longevity in life. Okay, so that's really key and really important that you get that variation of color so that you guys can see it. I'm just turning it around and moving it. So, well, it is time to wrap up. I hope you guys enjoyed my upload-download technique. It's just a play on words. And so I just wanted to give you a bronze technique today, which is a combination of bronze and blonde. So I hope you enjoyed it. And again, you can reach me, DM me on Instagram, George Colorboy Geo, or on my Facebook, George Alderete Colorboy Geo, anytime. We're always here for you. We're here to offer you any kind of assistance or advice that you might need in color, cutting, styling, finishing, whatever you might need. We have a great team of people.
Eli Wednesday.
Oh, that's right. We have somebody coming up who just got nominated for avant-garde category in the Global Image Awards, and that's Eli Mancha. He'll be sharing with you styling tips, I believe, on Wednesday at 1 o'clock. So please tune in for Eli and see what he has to offer. I hope you enjoyed today. I had a great time. Thank you so much for checking in with us. Jessica, thank you so much for feeding me the questions and helping me out. And to my nifty assistant, Bill Storkin, thank you very much for all your help. Signing off, this is George Alderete, Color Boy Geo. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.